Hello and welcome to part one. We're going to go ahead and set up a project. So go ahead and open up the Epic's Game Launcher. Go to Library, Launch. I'm going to be using 4.25. And if there is a new release between tutorials, I'm not going to upgrade. So I'm just going to be stuck with 4.25. So we're just going to be working on that one. So go ahead and click on Game, Next, Blank, Next. Yes, Blueprint. This is important. You're gonna want to set this to be scalable 3D or 2D. That's very important. If you don't do this, then the sprites aren't gonna render right and they're gonna be really dark. So yeah, make sure you set that to scalable. And we're gonna set this to be desktop console, no starter content. We're not gonna need it. And so go ahead and name it whatever you'd like, and then hit create project. I've already done that, so I'm gonna go ahead and open it up. So you should open up to a page like this. This might be folded in, so go ahead and unfold that. And just a quick note, I'm gonna run mine at 30 frames, just to help my computer out when recording, because when I record it maxes out everything, and it's kind of slow. So anyway, you can do that by hitting the tilde key, I think it's called, and then typing in uh, max FPS, or no, it's t dot max t.max FPS, and then type in 30, but you don't have to do this. This is just for me. So we're going to go ahead and content, and we're going to create a new folder, and we're going to call it maps. So we'll make sure we have that open, and then we're going to make a new level, and I'm just going to call it Tetris player, or Tetris level, actually, because we're going to name we're going to name an actor Tetris player, so I don't want to get too confusing. So go ahead and open this up. Don't save, or we don't really need that. And really quickly, we're going to go into File, Project Settings, actually Edit, Project Settings, and we're going to go to Maps and Modes, and we're going to set the editor startup to be Tetris level and the game default map Tetris level. This one is very important. If you don't do this, when you package the game, it won't launch, or I mean, it'll just crash. So make sure you have that set. And we're gonna leave this tab open. We're gonna come back to it in a minute, but let's go ahead and save. And then we're going to go ahead and create. Actually, since we have this open, let's go ahead and we're gonna figure out the input buttons that we want. So go to inputs, and there should be none here. So in action maps, so go ahead and we're going to add a couple action maps. This is for the input. Now you can set this to whatever you want, but this is what I'm going to set it to. First one I'm going to name is move block left, and I'm going to assign that to the left arrow. So left arrow, and then as well I'm going to add one more and set it to be D-pad. Let's see. It should just be able to type in D-pad and it comes up. So D-pad left, that's for the controller, whether you're on PS4 or Xbox. So I'm gonna make another one called move block right. And yeah, I am a little slow at typing right now, so yeah, just forgive me. And I'm gonna set that to right. Okay, right. And then as well, I'm going to set the D-pad to right. And then I'm going to make another one called move block down. And you guessed it, it's going to be the down key. And remember, you can set this to whatever you'd like. You don't have to set it to what I'm doing, but because I know a lot of people like the WASD keys. I prefer the D-pad, so that's what I'm going to set it to, but feel free to set it to that if you'd like. So gamepad, D-pad down. Let's see. So we need rotate block left, and we're going to add, let's see, what key did I use? Okay, I used A, so I'm going to use the A key to rotate it. And then on this one, I actually have two buttons. One's for the trigger and shoulder. So you can just type in, you should be able, yeah, gamepad left trigger and then shoulder. So I should just be able to type this in and it comes up. So left shoulder, okay, those are both correct. So make another one, and we'll add 3, and we will name it rotate block right. The D key, and this will be the trigger. Gamepad, don't use left trigger axis. Make sure you're using the left trigger. Actually, it should be right trigger, not left trigger, right trigger. And the next one is shoulder. And I keep forgetting to turn caps lock off. So right shoulder. That looks correct. So we'll add another one. And this is going to be called hold slash, I can't even say it, switch. And this is for the key that we use for holding and switching pieces. I'm going to use the space key. And it's face top. That is Y if you're on Xbox and triangle if you're on PS4. So pause game. Okay, pause game. So I'm just gonna name this. Yeah, just pause game. Pause game. We don't have to be too fancy. And I'm gonna make this the enter key. Gonna add another one, and we'll set it to. Well, I should already know this. That's kind of silly. Actually, I don't know it because it's not called start. It's called special right. So I have to look up for special rights. Yeah, special right. Okay. And last one, which actually I did this in the wrong order, but it won't hurt. We'll call this drop block. And what that is I'm going to set it to the X key, by the way, for the keyboard. If I could find it. There it is. And it should be face right, or no, left. That's square. Let me double check. Yeah, that's right. Okay. And that's everything. I'll go ahead and I'll leave this open for a moment so you can see how I have everything set up. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come in here. We have maps. Make sure you have the content selected, not maps. Otherwise, it'll add the folder there. So the new folder we're going to add, we're going to call it game. And this is where we're going to have pretty much the bulk of everything. So go ahead and select blueprint class. And we want to use the game mode base. And I'm just going to call this Tetris game mode. That should be good enough. Go ahead. Actually, before we open it, okay, so open editor preferences. So you can go edit, editor preferences, go to all settings, and it's right here, open, or asset editor, open location, select main window. So that way when we open any of the blueprint classes, it'll open in a new window. So now before we do this, before we open this, let's make one more blueprint class. I'm just going to call it PC for player controller. And scroll down here to mouse interface and click on show mouse cursor. So we're going to have that on, compile, save, and then we're going to go into our... So the first thing is we need to go to player controller class and select PC. And let's see, default pawn, we're going to set that to none. Otherwise, it's going to spawn a third-person character, and we don't want that. And I believe that is everything for right now. So I'll go ahead and compile, save. So after you have that, let's go ahead and create another folder in content. And we're going to call this images, or you could call it textures if you'd like. That's basically what we're going to be doing. So after you've created your image folder, we're going to go ahead and import a texture, and that texture, we'll go ahead and just drag it in and import it, or you can just press import and find the file and import it. But there's going to be two files. So if you go to this one, you'll notice there's a lot more. It has these extra blocks here. That's if you're following me on Patreon, you can get that, and we're going to use those for the background on the following blocks. But if you're following me on YouTube, like I said, there'll be a link in the description where you can download it. It'll just be this section. And yeah, so go ahead and import it, and then right click on it, go to Sprite Actions, and apply Paper 2D texture settings. So go ahead and click on that, and now it shouldn't be blurry. It should be nice and pixely. Let's go ahead and content and add one more folder called materials, and we're gonna set up one material that all the sprites are gonna use. And this is for performance. If you don't do this, your game's going to run really slow and have a lot of draw calls. And real quick, I'm going to close that. So make sure you do that. So right click, go to materials, and we're just going to call this sprite material, or actually sprite mat for short. And we'll go ahead and open that up. Now we want to go here to the details. Go to default lit, set that to unlit. For right now, we're going to set it to be translucent. But if you want to have a little bit better performance, don't turn on translucent. And one more thing, let me see. It should be by default, yeah. So we don't want shadows. I believe also we should uncheck this. I don't really think it matters, but I'm going to uncheck it anyway. So we're going to search for a sprite texture sampler. And yep, sprite texture sample. It's very important. And then we're going to go to, I'll also type in vertex color. Then hold M to add 2 multiply nodes. And we're going to multiply this. We don't really need this, and we can remove this before we package it. But this is just so we can change the color for debug reasons. But also make sure you plug in the alpha. And plug this into emissive color and this one into opacity. And that should be everything. So go ahead and hit apply, save it, and we will close it down. Now, one other thing we're going to do to make it a little bit easier is we're going to go to project settings, back to project settings, search for Paper 2D import, and we're going to set all these, because for some reason, if you want to, usually I set it to default because we're going to have to apply this to every single sprite we make. But the thing is, if you just set one of these, you have to set all of it for it to work. Even though if you have default, it doesn't work for some reason. So go ahead and select this on all of them. It could just be me doing something wrong, but I'm going to set it to this. Actually, okay, I forgot one more step. Just to make this, left click on it and do create material instance and actually use that. My apologies, I forget that step. And go ahead and apply it to everything. Like I said, for some reason you have to set all of these, otherwise it doesn't import the sprites with this material, and you'll have to go back to each and every sprite and reset it, and it's kind of annoying. So we'll go ahead and save all. And so go back to images, and we're going to create sprite actions, create sprite, and I'm going to name this Tetris grid. No spaces. Tetris grid SPR. So we'll go in here. Now I'm going to show you, I'm going to extract 1 or 2 sprites to show you what to do, but there are a lot of sprites here that we have to make. And as of 4.24, there is a bug where if you try and duplicate it, it messes it up. It messes the sprite up. You might be able to do that and be okay, but I kind of don't want to take a chance. And I know we're on 2.5, 4.25 that is. But just to be safe, I would just recommend going and creating a sprite, naming it. But anyway, after you've done that and created a sprite and named it, go in here and select editor source. and left click here, and really quickly we can set this to be one pixel snap size. So go ahead and we'll set this to be about right there, and save, I believe. Also, we should set collision thickness to 1. And then I believe we can leave this, yeah. Actually, on this specific one, have no collision. We don't want any collision on it. And that should be everything for this one. And one other thing we can do is we go to Preference, Editor Preferences, click on All Settings, type in Power of 2, and then click on Grid Snapping. That'll help out because we'll have power of 2 snap sizes. So we're pretty much going to work with just 16, 32, and 1. So anyway, after you've done that, set it to no collision, no physics on this specific one. On the other ones, on these blocks, we're going to set physics so we can have that falling animation. You don't have to do this. I will show you another method if you don't want to do it, but go ahead and save this. And if you duplicate it, right, I want to show the bug. Maybe they fixed it. I'm not sure. But like if you go and you try and change it, I'm going to set the snap size to be 32. So if you go and duplicate it, watch, it'd be kind of funny if the bug doesn't like occur when I'm recording. So I just look stupid. Let's see. Oh yeah, there it is. See? So there is still a bug. I don't know. Apparently they didn't fix it, unfortunately, but you cannot duplicate it. Now this is completely corrupted, and no matter what you do, it will not change. It's going to be stuck like that. So we're going to go ahead and just delete it. So don't duplicate it if you're on 4.25. So I'm just going to delete it. Delete. And really quickly, let's set this to be right. And we can actually go ahead and drag this in and also set this to be unlit. And we'll clear out the coordinates, and we'll also turn off grid so we can see a little bit easier. So with that, so yeah, so for the next ones, I'm going to go ahead and I'll show you one more, and then you're going to have to do the sprites yourself. But we'll go ahead, we'll create another sprite, open it up, we'll go into edit source region, and now so for all of these 32 by 32 blocks, go ahead and fit the source region around it. And like I said, you can't duplicate it, you just have to create a new sprite. That should be that. So I'll go ahead and go forward into the video, and I'll have everything done, and I'll show you what to name them. But for this one, I already know what it's going to be called. I'm just going to name it JPiece SPR for sprite. And that should be how you should name everything. So I will pause the video, and I'll see you in a second. Okay, so once you've done that, you should have 9 pieces. Remember to go ahead and create a sprite for the white and the gray, and we're going to make a new folder called block pieces, and we're going to take everything and we're going to move it in just for organization purposes. Select move here. We're going to leave the Tetris grid out for right now. So go ahead, and these are what I named everything. So we have L piece, J piece, I piece, J piece, L piece, N, O, T, W, X, and Z. So once you've done that, there's only one more thing we need to do for the tutorial, for this video I mean, is come up here to place actors and go to all classes and select or type in camera. So go ahead and select camera and add it to your scene and zero out its coordinates, and we're going to rotate it on the z-axis by -90 degrees, and we're going to set this to perspective to orthographic, and we're going to set the ortho width to be 1300. and that should work out just fine. Okay, so that should be everything in this video. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in part 2.